Welcome back to the Sports Authority. The Bengals training camp continues to roll merrily along at Paul Brown Stadium, so we welcome back in Richard Skinner, our Bengals beat writer and digital sports columnist. Skinny, another week in the books of Bengals training camp, and things seem to be coming together, but we don't have many more answers, at least on the offensive side of the ball for the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, the big part was obviously Joe Burrow talking about the knee being a mental thing. I mean, I've been writing about it for almost a week. We talked a little bit about it on the show last week. I think there's a lot of fans that didn't want to hear it, thought we were making some things up. But it is real. And, I think the takeaway from this is, as much as you want him to be Superman and you think he is Superman and he carries all the hopes and dreams of the city, he's also a human being who got his knee cut on back in December. And there's going to be a mental hurdle to come over. The good part was after he spoke, and I thought he got a lot of things out there about how it's affected him mentally, some ways to rectify that. He went out then and had his best 11-11 session of camp. And some of it was the first unscripted session where they just started a drive. And if you kept the drive going, you were able to cap the drive. Now, they also had 2 3-and-outs sandwiched around it, but made a couple of big third down throws, made a great fourth down throw to T. Higgins. He was 9 of 10, on that drive for 72 yards. Really accurate. Just so everything that you wanted to see, you saw from him. But it's still a work in progress because he's not going to play in preseason game number 1. They still seem to not want him to play at all. I think he should. He needs to feel some contact. He needs to have that. And I don't want it to be week 1 where he starts looking around going, oh my, this is quick. And I don't think he wants that either.
You stole my next question, which would be, with the preseason game coming up on Saturday, is he going to get any reps? Do you think he should get any reps, even if it's just for a series or 2?
Yeah, if Zach Taylor ruled that out completely today, at least for preseason game number 1, I'm in the camp that says he should. And the interesting part is, we don't have 4 games this year. You only have the 3. And I think Zach and I think other coaches around the league are trying to fill out, is game 3 going to be like the old game 4 where you're playing, everybody that plays that game, you go, uh-oh, he's cut and he's cut and he's cut. That's usually what that last game is about. But now you don't have that kind of window. So what's game 3 going to be like? So if he's not going to play this game, if game 3 is treated like the old game 4, he's not going to play that game, so that leaves just preseason game 2. I think he's got to get some reps.
What's the level of concern with Burrow? I mean, for most of us who have at least been around athletes who have gone through something traumatic, we want him to be Superman. We want him to, he's not on the PUP list. He must be back to full health. He's doing OTAs. The guy almost got his leg ripped off. I mean, it's normal to have that mental block, but how concerned should we be at this point of where he is?
I think to the point of, okay, it's real. The mental issue is there. He's addressed it. He knows it. It would be more concerning if this was the September 11th or 10th practice right before you go to the opener. If we're still dealing with that, and he even said that, if this is the week leading up to Minnesota, then I'll push the panic button. But there is a lot more time to do some drill work for him to start. He wants to feel the pressure as opposed to looking at it, and I get that. Most quarterbacks are that way. I think just if he continues to stack performances like he did in that 11-on-11 session, any of that worry will go away for him and for us and for fans, and we'll see the Joe Burrow you want to see in week 1.
Let's pretend for a second that he's not going to play at all in the preseason. He said himself he needs to get that first hit. He needs to see the bullets fly. He's probably not going to get that in practice, even if they say go after him. I don't think there's a single defensive lineman on that team who's going to touch the merchandise.
That's right.
How can the team and how can Zach Taylor get him over those hurdles, get him those reps in order so that when that first week comes, he's ready to go?
Yeah, I think just more live 11-on-11 stuff of getting pressurized. They're doing some other things now in 7-on-7s where there is no rush, but they're having a coach kind of back towards him where he feels a body around him and kind of has to adjust to that. And they're doing that a little bit in some one-on-one. So they're trying to simulate now in some of those non-contact things at least some form of pressure so he feels it. Joseph Osai did hit him on Saturday. It was a bump, and it was kind of completely accidental, and he got the reminder, don't touch the merchandise. You're right, but listen, if you still haven't had contact in week 1, that week 1's got to be a rude awakening. And I know he didn't have that last year because nobody had preseason games, but he also wasn't coming off major reconstructive knee injury either.
Well, we've talked about Joe Burrow. Let's hear from QB1 himself as he spoke this week to reporters.
I'm throwing the ball in the right spot, getting the right checks, doing all that stuff right now. It's just putting the physical and mental side back together. They're 2 separate things right now. So just getting that connection back, just going to take reps. I'm anxious to get out there. I think I take that first hit and I'm right back at it. That's how I feel right now. Just got to get back to playing football.
And when Joe Burrow does take the field, which we assume he will for the first game, the offensive line is going to have a new look, and it continues to be a shuffle. I think one of the interesting things that I heard Zach Taylor say today was Deante Smith, a guy that they drafted as a project tackle, getting a lot of reps, obviously, with injuries at tackle, but maybe knocking on the door for a guard position.
It was surprising. Yesterday was the first day. Saturday was the first day he started taking reps. He really struggled at tackle against Sam Hubbard in one of the 11-on-11s, one of the first full padded practices when he was playing in place of Riley Reef. But, he's in there now playing the left guard spot, and he's playing ahead of Jackson Carman. Quentin Spain's nicked up right now, so that kind of has opened the door. You would think Carman might be the one going through the door, but they're giving it to Deante. Deante did start at guard in the Senior Bowl, only played one game in college at the position, so he was drafted primarily, as you mentioned, as a project tackle. But I do remember at draft time, project tackle who might be able to eventually move inside to guard. The coaches went to him on Saturday and said, hey, we want you to start taking some reps, and talked to him a little bit after practice today. He looks way more comfortable there, and yesterday it felt like, all right, Quentin's out, just let him get some stuff, and then today he's in there again. And as you mentioned, Zach Taylor spoke pretty highly of him as a player and honestly kind of as a person. It'll be weird if he's in there ahead of Jackson Carman, but right now it is a big time shuffle with those guard spots. I mean, I think the only thing etched in stone, you got Riley Reif, you got Jonah Williams, and you got Trey Hopkins, if Hopkins is healthy, and he's starting to get in some 11s. I mean, the guards, honestly, right now, if you gave me dice with their names on it, I could roll them 50 different times, come up with 50 different combinations, and go, yeah, okay, I'll take those two guys. It's a work in progress.
You mentioned the Trey Hopkins. If he's healthy out there, he's a pretty solid center. If he's not out there, let's say he's not 100% by the first game, Billy Price probably on his last string with the Bengals. How has Billy looked so far, and does it look like maybe he's going to be able to stick around?
Yeah, I think he's going to stick around because, again, you're on the last year of that rookie contract. It's not costing you an arm and a leg, no pun intended. He has experience as a starter in the league. The game he started last year, they did win the Tennessee game. It's the only game he started at center. So there is maybe something still there. But yeah, Trey, they're still being cautious. He's playing some in 11s. I think he's going to be ready for week one. And I think Billy's the backup. He makes the club.
All right, let's talk specifically about last week we did the offensive line spotlight. This week we're going to talk about the running backs because for the first time in weeks, we heard from Joe Mixon.
Yep, Joe Mixon was pretty candid and colorful as well on Friday and talking about being a 3-down back, which he's going to get a chance to be more of. It almost felt formulaic a lot of times when he and Giovanni Bernard were healthy together. He'd get first and second, Gio would come in for third. Some of it isn't because Joe's not a good pass catcher, and I think Joe gets offended at that he thinks it's not it's the whole pass blocking thing. Now, Joe said, when I pass block, I take heads off. Well, hopefully we will see that. The interesting part is who shakes up behind him, and a couple things to remember is, for number one, Samaje Perine's probably etched as the main backup. Chris Evans has looked every bit the part as the pass catcher. He's got some good speed, but he's also got to learn how to pass block, and sometimes that doesn't come easy. The other spot, Trayvon Williams, Jacquez, Patrick, don't forget, Patrick, he was really good in a scrimmage last year, and that's all we saw of him because there was no preseason game. So he had the good scrimmage. It wasn't really a tackling scrimmage, so it looked like he was running through tackles, but now he gets to play some real tackle football. So he and Trayvon Williams, I think, in a good battle. Trayvon's probably got a leg up. He's been the personal protector on the punt team. I think they may envision him in that role. But for those guys at the back end of the roster, like Trayvon and him, it's a chance to put something on tape at least, and they really didn't get a chance to do a whole lot of that. Certainly for Patrick, he didn't have a chance to do none of that last year.
Joe Mixon, obviously, he's a running back. He got the big deal last year. Is this still a prove-it kind of year for him, too? Because at least in my mind, he's missed significant time the last couple of years. He got the big contract. It's almost like, all right, I know you led the AFC in rushing a few years ago, but what have you done for me lately? Can you still be that?
Yeah, and I think he can, for sure. He loves Frank Pollock. That's the guy who was the offensive line coach when he led the AFC in rushing, as you mentioned, in 18. He did follow that up with a 1,000-yard year in 19. And he was actually on pace when he got hurt last year to really break all of his totals. I think if he stays healthy and he becomes that 3-down back, now listen, he's not taking every snap at running back, but primarily the 3-down back, I could envision a 1,300-yard, 60 receptions for another 550 type of year from him. I could see a monster year for Joe Mixon. So, yeah, it is a prove it. I guess it's year 2 of the deal, and he didn't do a whole lot, but there's still a lot left. He's a young guy. Doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires like some of these other running backs do in the league. I think Joe Mixon's best years are actually ahead of him.
All right, let's switch gears because for the first time in this preseason, we have a game that we can talk about. They're going to play on Saturday, kick off against the defending Super Bowl champs. You mentioned earlier that this is kind of a feel-it-out game because coaches may not know you play everybody all at once.
Right.
You know, what game do you treat this like?
Do we see Tom Brady? I don't know.
I would probably guess Tom's not gonna see the field.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe he gets a couple series in front of the home crowd. I would think they trot him out there for a series. I would think, maybe not. I think you're going to see a lot of Brandon Allen, and that's the goofy part is now Brandon kind of is the starter because Joe's out. And as you know, a lot of times in preseason games, the starter goes a couple, 3 series, and then it's the backup, and the backup plays probably 2 quarters, and then the third guy gets a chance. This is really a good chance for Brandon Allen to get some really quality reps with the ones, because we saw last year you had to use him. And it's going to give the other 2 guys, Kyle Shermer and Eric Dungy, a chance to probably not just mop up, but maybe play a full quarter each in the second half. Maybe split it a little bit differently over these 2 preseason games. So it's really an opportunity for all 3 of those guys with Joe not being in.
Other than Brandon Allen, because we assume that Joe's not going to play, who are some other guys with the truncated preseason now? Some of these guys on the back end of the roster have to prove themselves earlier. Who are some guys you're watching for on Saturday?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Marcus Bailey, linebackers, I think all those linebackers, because it is a young group. I want to see how they play when it's real tackle football. They've looked really good. I want to see Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson, and you're not going to see them for a lot, but those guys have at times been dominant coming off the edge. The corners have been great, and you're thinking, all right, the corners are doing great against what we think is a really good receiving core. Let's see them do it against somebody else. So some of that, again, who does start up front on the offensive line, especially those guard spots, and how do they handle that stuff? Jamar Chase needs to, I think, show something. He's had his struggles here so far in camp. Had another drop today. So let's see when he gets in a real game with real speed and gets a chance to maybe showcase it against somebody else. What can he do? So there's a lot of things in week 1 to watch, and you would think you want to watch Joe Burrow and how there's actually going to be a lot more besides that. So I think there's a lot to watch in preseason game 1.
With the only 3 games, how do you think the coaching staff should handle having 1 less game? And this is a Bengals team that, if you're the defending Super Bowl champs, maybe you don't need 4 games. It's a young Bengals team. They can use all the preseason that they can get.
Yeah, and especially some of those guards. I mean, I'd love to see Jackson Carman get as many reps as he can. And if you don't think it's him right now and you think it's Deante Smith, I'd like to see him get as many reps as he can. You got those young ends, Joseph Osai behind Hubbard. Get some of those guys ready. And those linebackers. Josh Bynes started 16 games, and while he was just a guy, and he's a journeyman and all of those things, and he was never a playmaker, he did start all 16 games last year. He obviously was consistent enough and good enough to do that. And they've decided, we've got some young up-and-comers. We like Logan Wilson. We like Akeem Davis-Gaither. Jermaine Pratt has had a great camp. We need to see those guys do it when it counts. And so those guys will be interesting to watch, too.